Hello, this is Dr. Anthony Delmond. We've been talking about the presentation mix, and we spent a bit of time now talking about persuasive communication. Now we want to move on to proof statements, visual aids, and participation. Proof statements are essentially just that. They prove the quality of a product, or they verify it in some way for potential customers. They can be internal or external, depending on who's doing the proof. Internal proof statements are those that are provided by the company and it hasn't been outsourced. External proof statements are those that come from outside of the company. External proof statements obviously are superior in terms of verifiability because people aren't incentivized necessarily for verifying the quality of a product. It comes in four forms. Company proof statements, those are the internal proof statements. A company obviously is going to speak positively about its product, and it's going to only present you with the information that paints the product in a positive light. Testimonials, crowdsourced proof statements, and independent research, these are the external proof statements. And we'll walk through those one at a time. Company proof statements just take data that comes directly from the company, maybe isn't publicly available, and it converts it into something that paints the product positively for customers. Proprietary data is just any secure data that is owned by or created by a company, so it's not public. What are some examples of company proof statements? Well, this might be a fact sheet that comes directly from the company. If you're buying a new car, any type of new machinery, you're usually going to get some kind of fact sheet that walks you through how that product stacks up. It's going to give you all the regular listings, horsepower, and so on, but it's also maybe going to tell you how it compares with competitor options. What are the safety features? What is the safety rating? If it's a rating that's provided by an external company, that's not a company proof statement. If it's provided directly by the company that creates the product and there's not any kind of independent verification, that would be an example of a company proof statement. Testimonials are another form of proof statement. They give you some anecdotal evidence, as we talked about before, of product success directly from buyers or users of the product. So we've seen a lot of testimonials probably in our lives. These come in the form of maybe direct buyer testimonials. This is somebody that comes forth and says, well, I bought this product and this is how I felt about it. A lot of companies will post direct buyer testimonials on their websites, maybe a video or a short blurb where somebody said this about the product, and go figure, they're all positive. You would never put a testimonial out there that's negative for your product because it would hurt your sales. Customer reviews are another form of proof statement. These are useful on Amazon. A lot of people will post reviews of products. You see this on a lot of websites. Paid product endorsements, this is where somebody is being paid to endorse a product. I always think about Gatorade and Nike shoes. Sports folks do these kinds of product endorsements all the time, and the idea is to appeal to that same psychological suggestion here that we talked about last time, where you're thinking that you'll be like this person if only you buy this product. Paid endorsements, again, less credible, but they appeal to certain customers, people who really want to be like those people, and they do pretty well, whether or not we'd like to believe that they do. Testimonials can be presented in a lot of ways, depending on the product and situation, presentation method, and so on. Customer quotes, in-person sharing. In-person sharing is great if you can have somebody actually come in and tell you about the product that they purchased, but that's pretty expensive. Peer reviews, again, those can be in the form of customer reviews, people that are on your level. Case studies, social media, influencer posts are very useful because it gets somebody who's not paid by the company to talk about a product. As long as it's positive, it's useful. Like I said, some companies will put video recordings of customers reviewing a product. Interviews, long-form testimonials, these are really long, in-depth questionnaires maybe that somebody's filled out and you can walk through their answers. Product walkthroughs, high-profile endorsements, and press reviews. All right, so those are for testimonials only. There's also crowdsourced proof statements, and those are growing in popularity. These involve aggregated reviews. So these are similar to testimonials, but they provide, instead of just anecdotal evidence, they provide statistical averages for what people think of a product. Crowdsourcing is when data comes from large swaths of external stakeholders, people who are customers, but they aren't benefiting directly from the product in the same way as a seller would. They're more credible than testimonials because the people aren't being incentivized to give them. We see these sometimes in the form of eBay reviews or eBay star ratings for products, Amazon star ratings for products. You're not reading through a review, but you're getting at least a feel for what a large segment of the population feels about a product. And lastly, we have independent reviews or independent research. Independent research is where experts have tested and verified the quality of a product, and they put information out about it so that everybody knows. They're very objective, and they're usually seen as the best form of proof statements, or at least the most credible. Some examples, you could see them in CNET reviews, consumer reports, magazine and consumer affairs product reviews. There's a lot of other places you can get these, but these are some of the companies that put them out. Like I said, internal proof statements are the least reliable, just because people are incentivized to put these out. As we've seen technology expand and there's been more online marketing, it's becoming a lot harder to distinguish the authenticity and value of proof statements in general because we don't know whether it's been fabricated. We don't know if the customer is real or if it's a bot. We can't tell when there's financial incentives. It may be that a company says, for every review you put out of our products, we'll give you $10. And so we don't know if we can trust those proof statements. And we can't really tell if a proof statement's accurate either. Those crowdsourced ones are better just because there's a lot of information out there. And obviously the best are those independent researchers who put information out that looks at the specific product and compares it with others. The next component in the presentation mix is visual aids, and they're really useful when you're using them in a presentation. I can't imagine a good presentation without any form of visual aid, but there are a lot of different types: posters, photographs, videos. Slide presentations are pretty common for bigger, more complex products, especially if you're using a formula presentation or you're coming back after doing a problem solution and you want to give your results. You could do that in a slide presentation. But you could also use scale models and a whole bunch of other stuff. When you're building a visual aid, there's some things you want to consider. You want to make sure you include facts and figures that jump out at your customers. If you are presenting to somebody who doesn't care about statistics, you might want to gloss over this a little bit. But if you're presenting to somebody who isn't maybe an intuitive, somebody who wants to be able to walk through logically, you want to make sure that you are going to provide them with everything they need. You want to show the features of the products and discuss the benefits. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. You want to use as simple a visual aid as you can to get your point across. You do not need to make it complex to make it useful. You want to make sure your visual aid matches the presentation. Don't include a 3-minute video in a 4-minute presentation. Make sure that the visual aids you're using can be spoken through and that they don't disrupt the way that you want your presentation to go. They should be a supplement to and not a substitute for the presentation itself. I should have said it that way. You want to prepare and rehearse to make sure your visual aid works well, and you want to prepare for things to break. For example, I saw a presentation years ago where the person created a slideshow to go through their really complex customizable product, and there was a power outage about 5 minutes into the presentation, and the other 45 minutes of that 50-minute presentation were sunk because there was no backup. So he talked through and he picked up pretty well, but you could see where if you didn't rehearse and prepare, you might not be able to get past that setback. We also want to talk about participation, another part of the presentation mix. This allows customers to engage with the product. It is like visual aids, but instead of walking through specific facts and figures. You're actually letting them see the product, maybe play with it, see how it works. There's two main forms. There's dramatization and then there's demonstration. Dramatization is a form of psychological participation where your buyer is getting invested in some contrived scenario. We talked before about narrative being important. Dramatization puts a narrative structure to a situation. So maybe you can talk about some time when this product was very useful because it ties a person to a scenario. It can be useful. You want to make sure that you rehearse this. If your product fails, it can be very bad. The dramatization that I think about, it's a showmanship. When I was a kid, we had a rainbow vacuum cleaner salesman come to my house, and he dumped some dirt on my mother's floor, and then he proceeded to vacuum it up. My mom was very upset that he just walked in the house and dumped dirt on the floor without warning her. But he did clean it up. Had that not worked, and that dramatization had failed, that showmanship approach had failed, it would have been a total disaster. Today, it's very different because people have cell phones. What happens when you do something wrong? Well, somebody records it and you're stuck. So it's a really good idea to prepare for a dramatization very, very well. So I'll leave you to watch that little video on your own. It's a nice little example of a dramatization. I usually put up a couple for this class. Demonstration, on the other hand, is where the prospective customer is going to be able to actually mess with the product on their own. This comes in many forms. You could allow the customer to test out some basic product feature. You certainly wouldn't want them to try and do the most complex thing on their own because that will frustrate them if they can't figure it out. A salesperson might demonstrate more of the complex product features so that they can see the product in action but not mess it up on their own. Or you might allow the customer to take the product home temporarily. This is a really, really good tool. If you're able to let your customer take the product home, you might sell the product more often than not. People have this sense of loss aversion. We are more likely to be upset giving something up than we are at not having it in the first place. So people don't like to take ownership of something and then experience the loss of losing it. So very good idea to consider allowing somebody to take the product home if that's possible with your company. All right, I think that's a good place to stop again, and we'll come back and talk about trial closes and features, advantages, and benefits.